Welcome to bestia.dev. Learning Rust and Wasm programming and having fun. I just love programming. I upgraded my containerized Rust development environment, CRDE, to enable cross-compilation to Linux, Windows, Muscle, WASI and Wasm. Let's make a short tutorial on how it works. It is smart to start the development from scratch from time to time to avoid accumulating side effects that we forget about. Then the problem, but it works on my machine, arise. It is very easy to reset everything because we use containers. We will start on Windows with enabled WSL2. If exists, remove the Debian distro. Be careful to not lose any precious data. We will install a fresh Debian distro in PowerShell. It takes a minute. Open Debian Bash. Update and upgrade. Then install curl and open SSH. Just for info. Instead of the classic Ctrl+C and Ctrl+V, to copy and paste inside the Bash terminal I use Ctrl+Shift+C and Ctrl+Shift+V. Cumbersome, but similar. Make a directory. Go inside and download the first script. You can read the Bash script. It only creates the directory structure, downloads scripts and suggests what script to run next. Read and follow the detailed instructions after every script. Inside the SSH directory you will need two keys, one to access GitHub and the second to access your web server virtual machine. You should already have these keys somewhere and you just need to copy them into the SSH folder. I will call these keys GitHubSH1 and web servers sh1, but you can have other names. Modify accordingly to your locations and run these commands. Now you can run the first script with 4 parameters. Change the parameters with your personal data. They are needed for the container. The files will be stored in the SSH directory for later use. Then follow the instructions from the next script. Now you can install Podman and set up the keys Rust dev pod keys. Give a passphrase to the SSH keys and remember it. You will need it. When installing Podman and setup will finish, you can create the pod rust_dev_pod. On first run it will download around 1.2 GB from Docker Hub and store it in the cache for later use. After that, follow the detailed instructions. The Bash script will create the Rust dev pod. It contains Rust, Cargo, Rust-C and VS Code development environment. All outbound network traffic from the container is restricted through the Squid firewall proxy. To start this pod, it is mandatory to run the Bash script Rust dev pod after reboot. Be sure to push your code to GitHub frequently because sometimes containers just stop working. You can open VS Code directly on an existing project inside the container from the Linux host Bash terminal. The fresh empty containers works perfectly. We will now create a new simple Rust project as a proof of concept. We can compile it for Linux right away. Nothing new here. It works like a charm. Now cross-compile to Windows. Just add the correct target option. If we need to do this frequently, add it to the automation tasks. We are connected over SSH and we can download the exe file to Windows. On Windows we can run the CLI in PowerShell and it works. If we want to compile and build a true standalone executable for Linux we need to explicitly use the Muscle target and statically link to the Muscle library. That makes it perfect to run inside a stretch Linux OCI container without any dependencies. We will download the binary and move to the Debian in WSL where we will use Builda to create a Linux container image from scratch. Using Builda is very simple. We can run commands step by step and check things in between. Later we can put these commands inside a Bash script and it works perfectly. Then I use Podman to run the container. It works. I will compile to the target WASA now and run it with the WASM time WASA runtime. Everything works. Wasm runs inside a browser as a library and I cannot use the exact CLI project. I need just a few adjustments because of the user interface. I will use the cargo auto new wasm command to create a simple yet fully functional wasm program inside the browser. On purpose, the project is made very similar to the CLI we already know. I then use the exact same Rust code for the project logic except the user interface. The user interface is different and it is smart to isolate it in separate modules, so the logic can be reused. The structure of the modules in the WASM project is made similar as possible to the CLI. There are some minor differences though. The WASM program needs a basic web server and it then runs entirely inside the browser. We have seen live how cross-compiling works inside the containerized Rust development environment. It works nicely. This is all for today. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Find my code and tutorials on bestia.dev or GitHub.